Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got Dusty Holcomb with us. He is a trainer, a coach. Look, if you guys want to know what it's like to run 5 Ironmans, not one, I'm talking about 5 Ironmans, and how you learn what it means to be a leader on the backside of an Ironman, we're about to do that. His training from colonels on down. You're going to get ready to really understand what it is to have a great coach. Dusty, welcome to the podcast.
Anthony, thank you so much. It's funny you bring up Ironman, and I will say that one of the most impactful and important lessons I ever learned was in the darkest place on the backside of an Ironman marathon after I've been running for 10 hours, realizing that if I just got 30 seconds more per mile faster, I could actually achieve my A goal. And digging deep and understanding that it wasn't the moment then that mattered. It was all the preparation, all the training, all the work that went into it before. And the corollary for leadership is it's not about the moment we show up. It's about how we prepare and get ready for those moments, both for ourselves and most importantly for the leaders and teams that we serve. And it's so much fun to be able to learn that when you're all alone and you realize you actually have this in you.
When you start to look at leaders and their core failures, right? The places where we leaders, look, we want to grow an idea. We got an idea. A company want to grow the idea. We're walking through broken glass. We go through the abyss and the barbed wire. Where is it that most of us are failing? And look, if I got this one principle today, if I walked out today, here's a magic wand. Here, what's the principle we want them to understand today? We'll get some other stuff, but what's the most important one you think is for
I think the most important thing is that it is easy to identify the execution gap. And what we can see is there's a miss, there's a gap between where we are and where we want to be. And we can easily point fingers. And we have to be very, very careful that we aren't pointing fingers at other, because it's almost always an execution gap that's manifesting. A real gap upstream from that is clarity or alignment. Do we have clarity on where we're going? Does our team understand it? And are they aligned to it? It manifests as a gap in performance. It manifests as a gap in execution. That's never the problem. Very rarely is that the real issue.
Well, I mean, look, clarity equals workability. And I've sat here in many rooms over all the years I've been an entrepreneur, and you want to blame somebody else because, I don't know, maybe it's the human condition that we don't take responsibility for it. But as we start to grow as leaders, we start to understand it really is our responsibility, that we're accountable for what's happening in that room. And when there's not clarity or fuzzy agreements or fuzzy processes, but now some of that stuff I want to give entrepreneurs. So those of you entrepreneurs are in the beginning of building a business. Look, part of that is the business, right? Part of that is understanding the idea, right? You don't even have the idea solved out yet. It feels like this overwhelming thing, but a lot of young entrepreneurs, that some of that process stuff that's a mess is where we learn, right?
100%. Yeah. And as an entrepreneur and as a person who understands and has navigated this, like, we're serving two tensions. We have an idea in our mind and we want to bring it to the market. And so because of that, it's our baby. Nobody cares about it as much as we do. And we invest and we invest and we invest. And what we have to be careful of is we aren't crafting a perfect product that's not right, but we're just getting it out there. We're testing and learning. We're bringing it, out to the audience. And so we have to navigate this tension between the clarity that's in our head and what it is that the customer wants. And we think one thing, but we really have to listen. We have to tune. We have to adjust. We have to make sure that we're not falling in love with scaling something before we figured out if we can grow something. And I think that that's a really important dichotomy. I spent a number of years scaling businesses, really on the scale side of things. And it was one of the first traps I fell into as an entrepreneur. And it took a coach to get me unstuck, where he said, "Hey, Dusty, you're engineering a perfect solution before you even know if the customer wants it. Go sell something, go figure it out, go test and learn. You'll make a better product. Your vision that's in your head, it's solid. Don't get wrapped up and don't get wrapped around the axle of creating perfect. Go sell something."
Well, look, in having it in the customer's hand is the best place for it to start to unwind. But how many entrepreneurs want to wait till it's perfect and get perfect and you're trying to solve all the perfect I'm like, stop. Go out there and, the other day I'm working on a young man who wanted to be, I sold him one of my daughter's cars the other day. I was on Sunday and he's in there, he's talking about his life, and he walked in my house, he saw the podcast studio, and I go, "Oh, He goes, I've always wanted to be a podcaster. I go, great. Put your money where your mouth is. Be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Oh, I love that.
Right. I'm like, no. Here, that's your brain doing what our brains do. Right. How many of us entrepreneurs have that brain? It does what the brain does instead of just getting into action and making those sales or doing the things they need to be doing. Stuff, right?
Yeah, you do. And I think the dual tension here is then we can fall into this trap of just executing and doing without taking our nose up off the grindstone and going, where are we going? Are we still on course? Are we still on path? I'll link it back to the Ironman race. One of the very first Ironman races I did, it was before I learned about how to really swim and look where I was going. And I looked up a few hundred meters into the swim and I had drifted 200 meters off course. I was making great time, but I was going in the wrong direction. What I learned was I need to not swim the course. I need to swim to the next buoy. And so it's 2.4 miles. I don't need to swim 2.4 miles. I need to swim to the next buoy, take a sight, swim to the next buoy, take a sight. And I think that lesson really works well for entrepreneurs is like, where am I going? What does next look like? Take my eyes up. Go check, go back, get after it again. And put, like to your point, I love that you invited in, put your money where your mouth is. Just go do it. Because you know what? You will be better for having done it, especially if you failed. I mean, part of it is literally just getting your butt in the seat, right? As I looked at him, he's like, well, ideas, I wait for my partner. I got this guy in Boston. I would call him. I go, look, tomorrow you may or may not have him on the podcast, but what you want to do is get to the seat and turn the mic on. Yes.
And I go, when the mic gets on, you'll look, if he can show up, great. If he can't show up, you might go freestyle. Look, you might just want to learn how to volume and tempo and timing and what it means to sit behind a mic while your brain's telling you, oh no, people don't want to hear you, all that stuff, right? Just, getting into the process, his first buoy is get your butt to the seat, right? Turn on the equipment.
Get after it and then learn. Take the time. And I think that's, one of the things that I find that in working with, leaders, and it doesn't matter what level. I work with a lot of CEOs, and the time set aside to thoughtfully do an after action review and what worked, what didn't, what do I need to do different? How am I going to adjust next time? I think that's one of the traps that so many leaders that I work with, and myself included, have to coach myself on this, is we can be so damn busy that we forget to actually focus on learning and getting better at what we do. I have this first principle belief that in order to lead and effectively influence others, John Maxwell said, leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. In order to lead others, we must lead ourselves first. And that means we need to understand how we show up for the smallest things is everything, and everything we do is leadership. So we need to give ourselves the time and the space to think, to learn. So I hope he came in, did a great job, but I hope he also stepped back and went, what did I learn? How will I do it better next time? How do I improve myself? But we have to have time for that, and we have to have the discipline to do it.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that, because look, you got these processes that you're creating, right? SOPs and processes and right. Oftentimes we look external for the company processes, which are very important. Look, if I don't have great SOPs, there's not workability, right? If I don't have people that understand, hey, look, this is what's going to happen first, that's going to happen second. Look, and I'm guided by some principles, right? This is who our company is. This is our processes, but these are our principles, right? And understanding the distinction between those.
Yep.
But there's also the part of me as a leader, right? One of the guys explained to me one day, goes, it's kind of like, imagine all of us have a big thorn that we were born with, right? This unanswered question or this problem we're solving. One of the reasons why we become leaders, right? There's something we're trying to prove to the world. I mean, I would almost say it's inevitable in each one of us, right? There's something some value we want to show the world, and it shows up in that. I think it's a great way to at least see it that we hide. And some of the greatest lessons I've had as a leader is working on that thorn. Right, looking at that stuff and going, all right, how could me, not facing up to some of my fears, anxieties, and resentments, and all that stuff, how could that be stopping my ability to speak clearly and be in the room, maybe be present to people? Right? I guess what I'm saying is, isn't that as much work internally, right? I know a lot of times people are like, hey, you're doing a business podcast here. What are you talking about yourself?
All right. So I'm gonna share something that I've been thinking about a lot. and I was actually on an early morning walk. That's my processing time to think this morning, and I'm working through this. When we think of the role of the CEO, we think about the person who's got the power and making decisions and all that. And I think things are very, very simple. And it goes to this thorn. It goes to the ability to work on the things that need to be done that only you can do. And the way I think about it is the CEO has three core responsibilities. Number one, people and culture. How do we show up? What is the vision? What is it? How do we show up and engage with others, the values? Well, the question I ask, and I ask all of the CEOs I work with, exactly how much time do you spend curating the culture of your organization? What is the thorn you're working on? Do you give yourself time to step back and evaluate and evolve the behavioral norms within the organization? We have processes, we have principles, we have practices. How are the people showing up? The second thing is the vision and the plan. If we're not absolutely, like, with clarity, codifying that, casting it into the organization, and then connecting people to it, nobody else can do that the way the CEO can do that. Nobody else has the ability to move people around vision and plan the way the CEO does. And the third thing is this resource allocation, and that's capital, that's time, but most importantly is how do we make decisions about what gets done? And so the CEO, the leader of the organization, the entrepreneur, whether you have a team of one or a team of 10,000, how much time, effort, and energy are you investing into those core practices that are unique to your role? And how much are you really doing? And so you have to do lots of jobs, but those are the things that cannot be delegated well. And so to the thorn, we have these principles, but are we giving ourselves the time and the space to think about them and move them and evolve them and understand what needs to be changed? How do we need to grow? Who do I need to listen to? So one of the reasons I love doing podcasts is because I get to learn from great leaders, great thought leaders who make me go, I've never thought about it that way. This thorn conversation, I'm going to be chewing on that for the next week going, all right, there's something there. How do I need to think about that? How do I need to really bring that to life so I can just understand why I do what I do and why I'm wired the way I am?
For most of my younger years as an entrepreneur, here's $10,000 worth of therapy. From the playground I was at I was 6 or 7 on a playground where some kid made fun of the holes in my pants, right? Where, he kind of laughed at me because it was kind of a rich Christian school, and my mother worked at Denny's, and I had these holes, and I've been trying to defend I'm not poor since that conversation, right? So a lot of the stuff, the way I would show up, right, in my early years of being a leader, was this guy who's trying to prove he's not poor, right? And it's almost became like a show, right? The way I would spend money in the company, the way I would take people out, the way I would do things. And some of it wasn't very effective, right? But here, when some coach unwound it with me, it's like, let's go look at that, right? Here, that's not really, you go out drinking with employees, that's probably not a very fruitful event, right? You're not really creating, you might be having some fun in that moment, but really what you're creating is, broken homes and people getting drunk and not showing up the next day. It's behaviors that are not really conducive to building a long-term, stable environment for people to love being at. And, when I looked at that, right, when I looked at that behavior, it took a little bit it was in my face, right? This coach kind of got in my face a little bit. And I was like, Now, I'm not going to tell you to change it overnight because it took a little bit of training and some stuff to look at it. But I think there's where that internal thorn, which, hey, by the way, part of it was also my golden, it was also the thing that was my gold, right? Because
absolutely,
it was the drive. Right, but it's also the gold and my shadow, right? It's kind of both sides of that coin, and so I think entrepreneurs, as we look at those, where are those places where I'm not able to build deep, reliable, luscious relationships with the people who I work with, right? Am I using these people to get something for myself? Am I really here to serve them, right? When I can get in touch with that changes the whole dynamic. I think you were saying that earlier about. When I really learned that being an entrepreneur is really about serving others, right?
Yeah. So I actually love where your head is on this, and I'll unpack a similar vein for me. I've had a chip on my shoulder for most of my career to say that I'm not dumb. And that was born because I was homeschooled. My dad was a county extension agent in rural Georgia, and we lived an hour and a half away from a school, so I was homeschooled. And homeschooling back in the 80s was not structured the way it is now. It was about reading. Well, you ask a 10-year-old kid, hey, you want to stop going to school and you want to just do whatever you want? Man, life is good. I read everything I wanted. I read military history and I read biographies and I read these things. I didn't read any math books, right? Because that wasn't fun. But when I got time to get my not my undergraduate degree, my high school diploma, I had to get a GED, and there was a stigma attached to that. And I had a college admissions counselor who looked at me in the face and saw my GED, saw my SAT scores, and said, son, not everybody's cut out for college. Maybe you should consider a trade. And I went back 4 years later, graduated summa cum laude, and said, thank you for the motivation. The downside of that, and one of my coaches and mentors years ago told me that, hey, Dusty, your greatest strength will become your binding constraint if you do not learn how to use it and leverage it and overcome it. And that knowledge, that wisdom of this is what has gotten me to where I am, but the impact it can have on others in that I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't have to leave every conversation with 4 book prescriptions to these other people. Help me understand and see, read the label from inside the jar. I had these others here helping me mirror and understand so that I could become a better leader. The other thing I was going to mention there is touching on what leadership is. I got tucked under the wing of a retired colonel, a West Point guy at age 21, who saw something in me that I didn't see myself. And he taught me what leadership is. And this is the lesson he gave me at 21 years old. And I didn't have any idea of how valuable or how important it was. Is he said, Dusty, leadership has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with those that you serve. Your job is to make sure that they are successful so that the customer gets what they need. And when that happens, the company is successful. Now, be clear, that doesn't mean that you're a big kumbaya guy hugging people. Sometimes them being successful means they're not in the right seat and you have to help them get there. But your job, leadership's not about you, man. Get over yourself.
That whole... And I think that's one of the best parts about the work, right? We call it the work, right? This body of stuff to grow. Look, you can get stuck, and there's plenty of people out there who have small businesses, or look, if it's just a party of one, it's just me. It's not really a business. It's just a really expensive job, right? But if I want to grow a business, a team, an environment, right, a community of people who are like-minded in nature and ideas that want to grow something, you're going to have to really to get to that point, and that really does become a selfless behavior and a gift in that, in that service, I actually get to find the best parts about life, right? If I knew then, if I would have known this when I started, I would have done this a lot. I would have been a lot faster at it. But I also, some of the stuff comes with a little bit of there's going through some hard times actually, creates a little desperation. And you get a little bit more humble, right? And some of that humility gives you the ability to actually listen, because there's certain parts in that humility where you start realizing, all right, I lost another employee, or someone quit because they thought I was arrogant, or maybe I did something inappropriate, right? I mean, the way I talked to people was, I walked in a meeting, I cussed or something, or I offended somebody. I'm like, back in the old days, I would justify it. Forget them. I don't need them here. No, listen, that's not becoming of the company they want to work for. Right.
Everything we do is leadership. And to your point, we're just not able to hear the lessons because we don't have the wisdom and experience to understand the lesson as it's being taught. It's only through the rear view mirror that we can see some of this stuff. That same person, Colonel Camp, taught me. I remember him telling me this. Dusty, you're the most goal-driven person I've ever met. My fervent prayer for you is that you recognize the goal, and the achievement and attaining of the goal is not the end. What you really need to do is appreciate and enjoy the journey. And I'd love to say that I understood the value of that message when he told me 30 years ago. I didn't get it maybe until the last 5. And frankly, I'm probably still learning it because I'm still goal oriented. And so we just have to appreciate that these experiences are helping us become better if we choose to lean in and learn from them.
Well, it becomes kind of fun,
Oh yeah.
right? I mean, just you start to build an appetite of it, right? And by the way, as you went through 5 Ironmans, there was, you didn't just wake up one day and just say, I'm going to run an Ironman, right?
No.
No, I mean, there was a relentless training to get you there. And the Ironman happened in the training, right? It doesn't happen at the start line. It happened in the training.
It really did. And I'll tell you this, like the most calm moment I think I've ever had in my life was standing at the beach with 2,500 other people getting ready to start the swim. Because when I did these races and started doing them, everybody started at one time. They don't do that anymore. But everybody's getting ready to start. And it would be a time where you could be nervous. You could be scared. You could be like, holy, what did I do? And I was completely calm because I knew I had done the work. I had started a year before when I signed up. And then I didn't worry about what I was going to do a year from then. I just said, what do I need to do today? What does my plan say that I need to do today? I'm going to show up and do the work. And it was that moment where I realized that what I was actually doing was a reward. The race was the reward for all the effort. So I leaned in and enjoyed it. I was high-fiving people. I was, singing and dancing through the aid stations because it was a reward. It wasn't about, being nervous or being scared or all those things. I'd done it. At that point, everything that was within my control had been done. And now I just needed to be there and experience it. So I did 5. I did 2 that were 3 weeks apart. I don't know why that was not the smartest thing I've ever done. You learned a few lessons about that too. But you learn so much when you give yourself the permission to be present and reflect on the work you've done.
All right. So I'm going to do a little bit here. I want to get real similar between Ironman training and getting up every day to go to work. Now, how many mornings did you get up? Just talk a little bit about your training. How did you train?
So I would train. I'd have a very regimented plan, and it started with Sunday nights. Here's my plan for the week. I need to do A, B, and C, swim, bike, and run. Here's how much I'm going to do every single day. And here's what type of work I need to do within those blocks. So it's very specific, and it was planned a week in advance. And so then I just got up each morning and did the work. And so I'd say this morning is a 5 a.m. morning. This morning, Thursdays, as though I would approach a race, Thursdays was my long run day. That was a 3 a.m. wake up. So the last 8 weeks before a race, I'd be doing long runs. So I needed to be in the office. I was the president of a group at that point. And it's like, I need to be in the office at 7:30. So my wake up time is 3 a.m. I'm going on the 3 hour run or a 4 hour run, and I got to get it done. And you just did the work. The key was I didn't think about where I needed to be 12 weeks from now. That was the goal. I just deconstructed it to a weekly level and then executed it on a daily level. And then recognized there were those days when I would wake up and go, that hurts. If I go do this, I'm going to follow my plan into a wall. I'm going to give myself permission to adjust to make sure that I am keeping the end in mind, the goal state in mind. So that was the psychology that I was going through. Plan the work the plan, but with permission to make adjustments if I needed to.
Well, let's go through that same mentality as a leader, right? I mean, a lot of us get caught up in, look, I do it all the time, right? I kind of flow through my day without a plan. I just kind of go around solving problems. And sometimes it's helpful, right? Look, I certainly, nobody walks in my office without a problem. Right? People don't walk in and go, "Hey, we just made an extra $10,000 we didn't expect to do." It's usually, "Hey, something just caught on fire. There's bullets coming at us from every angle. Hey, there's this over here." It's usually, the things that boil up to my office are things that along the way couldn't get solved. Right? If it's people need to come in and they need my permission to solve something or help them out or whatever it is. Rarely do the biggest problems usually end up in my office and. People, around me solve most of the rest of them. So there are times where I will get kicked off of my keel if I don't, because there's things I need to do to run a company, right? And when you talk about the things I need to do to be an Ironman, I need to, swim, run, swim, and bike, right? Biking, right?
Yep.
Run to a bike. If I don't do those practices, right, I'm not going to be able to get the Ironman done. Well, the same thing has to happen with a company, right? There's practices I have to do with, with running the organizational systems that need to be looked at.
Yeah, there are. And so the couple of thoughts come to mind. And this is so funny. We're talking about this today. In the last week, I've had conversations with 3 different clients who are the CEOs of large organizations. And we're talking about the delta in their time between a reactive state and a proactive state, and how much time they're spending reacting to the environment. And the common question, the common issue that we're dealing with, because they do have to do these things, they have to be solved in the moment, is what are we doing to prevent them from coming back to us? So what is the psychology? What is the leadership lesson when someone is bringing us this problem, this issue that's going to knock us off our keel? Are we teaching them that they should bring this to us along with 2 solutions that they have thoughtfully considered and said, hey, here's what I'm considering. I'm bringing you an issue I've recognized, 2 solutions to address it, and what I recommend. Help me understand what I'm missing. Because then when we're doing that, we're not fixing things. We are guiding them to make better decisions. I'm a firm believer that if we enable our teams and the people that we are responsible for leading with the necessary information to make better decisions, they're the ones who are closest to the problem, closest to the customer, closest to the opportunity. When they have the information so they can make good decisions, then we're going to make better decisions as a company, because you're not the one who's closest and with all the context and all the understanding. But that takes a lot of intentional work. So my practice, what I teach all of my clients, is there's nothing more important than a discipline of weekly preparation and identifying the one thing that must be done this week that only you can do or action on. And then that would define success for the week. Like if you can distill it to that, nothing knocks you off of that thing. And if it does, then you do whatever you have to. You grind it out, you grit it through, you find a way, because that one thing must be done. And that's what allows you to move in the margins. That's what allows you to adjust. Do that for the week and do that for the day. And that gives you that stability to move to the balls of your feet. I like to talk about leadership through the lens of judo and jujitsu. I spent a long time studying both of those arts. And when you lose on the judo mat, it's because you got on the back of your heels. Your weight became imbalanced and you were not able to maintain position. But if you can keep on the balls of your feet, if you can prepare to lean in, you can adjust to whatever your opponent's doing. You can redirect their weight and their force. And so thinking about leadership through this lens of, if we decide in advance what's most important, then we can navigate those things that are inevitably going to happen. They're going to happen, and you just have to be ready for it. But then you can teach your teams what you expect as a leader so they can make better decisions. You know, one of the things that you mentioned in the way you framed that, I think is so powerful, is they're coming to you for permission. You've given them rules of what they can and can't decide. Hey, if it's over $500,000, I expect to be brought into the loop on this. But if it's under $50,000 or under $5,000, I don't want to know. I trust your judgment. Leaders go wrong when they don't give guardrails and they don't give decision authority to truly empower, but they go even more wrong when they ping pong people. When they say, hey, look, you've got authority to make a decision. Don't even have to bring it to me if it's under $5,000 or $50,000 or whatever the number is. But then when they do and they get all in it and say, why'd you make that decision? You didn't do it the right way. I would have done it this way. What they're creating is paralysis, because the next time they're bringing it right back to them. You're teaching people all the time. And I don't think many people recognize that the role of the leader, the role of the CEO is as much teacher as it is anything else. You have to teach people what great looks like, what you expect, and how they need to show up. And when you do that and do that well, you enable them who are better at what they do than you are to truly create value in the organization.
You know, it was kind of funny how I transitioned from the one who had to be in every decision to the one that, it happened with one of the coaches. I love telling this story. She comes walking in my office one day. She's like, Anthony, today we're going to lock your door. I'm like, oh, great. People walk in my door all day, and I can focus. It'd be great for focusing. No, we're locking you in. I go, what are you talking about, Lola? Lola, what are you talking about? You're locking you in. Yeah. Look, you hired all these great people, and you keep walking out there and you step on their air hose, right? You got these great people you've hired amazing people, and now you're out there making decisions for them, and look, it's exhausting for them. And and I thought, okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll write lists. All right. So she goes, you get these meetings. You only get a few meetings a week, and you get 1 hour with each of these people. And it was just a small little leadership group. I had 1 hour with each of them. That's all you get to talk to them all week long, other than you see them at a coffee thing. I said, okay. So I thought maybe I'll write a list. All right, did you check the finance? Did you make sure the? And you know what I do now? When I have these meetings, I literally talk about how they're doing. How's their family? How's their kids? Look, the people who run the company, once you realize you hire great people, you set the system in place. Look, we talk about reporting and goals, and we set the course. Now everybody's going to measure themselves against a course. They have the matrix to measure. Now, how do I make those agreements, those visions fuzzy? Right when I come in and I change courses dramatically, or and there is something about having the ability to know when to make a change, right? Sometimes I reserve the right to be able to walk in and go, look, I'm going to take a shot here and move something. Everybody may not be happy about it, but there are times when I will walk in and just, I've been doing this long enough to have a sense that something's not working. And even if I'm wrong, I'll find out I'm wrong faster. And usually, they'll look at me like, all right, you want to go this way? I'm like, yep, we're going to try something on. We're going to invest in AI. We changed this software system. Because sometimes I can see from where I stand, because I don't get in the middle of it. Your job is to kind of stand up and bring, when you really do the work, I think you can bring a billion ideas to every problem, right? I mean, when you stand out here and you're not so close to it, you don't get myopic. Your job as a leader is to look at the billions of options that you can bring, and I think that's really, at least for me, noticing that spending time thinking gives me the ability to bring solutions that maybe even the people that are in the middle of them, they're great people. Sometimes they can't solve it, and further away, they'll bounce it off. Oh, here, look, here's an idea. Oh, that'll work, and it'll move them off center, and we can keep the flow going.
I could agree with you more. And I love the way you position that is you're not doing it every day, and you do have the right, you reserve the right to do it. But I'm betting you also explain what it is. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's why I'm seeing it. Here's what we're going to do. It's not going to make everybody happy. Yes, I realize that this throws everybody's plans in disarray, but we're going to make this change, and here's why. And I need you to commit to doing it. As you were telling the story, I'm laughing. I'm recognizing one of the great coaching wisdom moments I had from earlier in my career, where I was breaking free from this. I need to be involved in every decision. I need to do everything. I need to I need to have my fingers in it. And my coach said, and here's the real irony. I was griping to my coach about, why do I have to be in every decision? Why do I have to be the one that makes all the dang decisions? And he just looked at me and he said, okay, well, Dusty, when is 80% good enough? And I said, well, it's never good enough. We should always do everything at 100%. He goes, okay. And who can do 100%? I said, well, I can. He said, so you're upset that other people can't deliver 100% the way you can? I said, yes. He goes, what's the ROI on the extra 20% that you could deliver that the other people can't? I had to stop and I said, I'm not sure there is one. He goes, so you're telling me that all this time and effort and energy that you're investing to move it from 80% to 20% and being the bottleneck is actually a waste? And I remember looking at him going, you son of a gun, you trapped me. But he was exactly right. Is the ROI on the extra 20% that I was trying to control wasn't good. It wasn't positive. It wasn't beneficial. And the real language and the real lesson came to exactly your point on knowing when to come in is when you can actually make that shift to say, we need to make a change here. The extra 20% is going to be tangible. It's going to be different, because when you're in the fight, you just can't see it. And so you just can't see it. What's the value of that extra 20%?
Yeah, I think that's why great coaching or great, relationships with people you can trust around you is really important, right? And that takes some vulnerability, right? Having a great coach, someone that you can bounce ideas off of, as great as an athlete is. You look at the guys who played on the Chicago Bulls. Phil Jackson had a handful of amazing human beings, right? But get those amazing human beings to play properly together, right? Someone's got to make the calls, and and not teach them how to play because they know what they know what they're doing. They know how to play. Now it's just how do we get them to work well together. Maybe it's moving some people around on the bus, maybe moving different teams in and out. But that comes with a little bit of that wisdom. So let's dive a little bit into the places where when you get engaged with a company and you start working with a leader, right? Let's kind of walk down that path. How do you start with them? How do you start to really look at, hey, how do I want to coach them?
Yeah, the first thing, I employ a very Socratic method. I want to understand. I want to listen. And when people, when they understand that you're not there to tell them what to do, you're there to help them see and understand, people start opening up. And I agree with you. Like, you have to be vulnerable. And I think it's great with your own teams. And it's great when you're working with an external team or a coach or an advisor. One of the things I firmly believe is that we have to be relational, not transactional. Transactionals don't scale, right? So what I do is I come in Socratic and I help understand what are the pressure points, where are the frustrations, what are you not getting done? And almost always there's a lack of clarity around expectation. And there's a lack of understanding between the leader and what's in his mind that's crystal clear and what people are doing. And one of the first practices or principles that I do is I ask them to write their rules of engagement. I want you to write an article, and we give them a template and form. I'll give it actually for your audience. We've got a download so everybody can do this. And it's the single most impactful tool that we've deployed that people can create immediate value and action from. So what I'll ask them to do is write their rules of engagement. We have a templated framework, walk through what is it you expect? What is it you value? What do you want to be held accountable to? And that's really, really important. When we tell people this is how I expect to show up and I invite you to hold me accountable. If you see me acting in a way that's incongruent, you're giving people permission to call you out on your own failings. And I think that's really important as a leader. I think that vulnerability and that authenticity to be able to do that. And then when you do this and you share these non-negotiables and these principles of belief, what it does, you give that to your team. They then have the playbook. They have the decoder ring to understand what's going on in your head and how you want to show up. And they know how to play. And then you ask them to write theirs. And so suddenly the whole leadership team is acting much faster, with much more clarity, with much more alignment. I've given this to a number of different CEOs and clients and executives. I've been doing this practice for 15 plus years myself. And I now have clients who do this in their entire company. It's just part of how they show up. I used to use them as a part of our allocation or process of hiring. I would give it to candidates. Hey, this is who I am as a leader. I want you to understand this is who we are as an organization. So that's where I start. Let's get clear.
Here, let's go to just one more time. I think it makes sense to have just really engage that. So you create clarity about who you are as a leader. Right. And let's talk a little bit about that. What are we telling them about who you are as a leader?
I'm telling them, what do I value? And I don't mean the words like I value integrity. Okay, that's nice. How does that show up? What are the behavioral values that I like? So I'll give you an example from mine. One of my values is don't make me follow up. Like, do not make me follow up. Hey, very clear. Follow up means that I have to check in with you to make sure your work got done. I will. Accountability is a two-way street. You've committed to doing something. I've committed to following up. I'm telling you, don't make me do it. Just asking you very clearly, don't make me follow up. And so that's one of the things, like, I can say, hey, be accountable, have extreme ownership. No. What that means is don't make me follow up. Don't make me guess. Another one of mine very specifically is bring data. I love to have real solutions, real conversations, but don't show up and say, well, it happened a bunch of times last week and I don't like it. No. It happened 4 times out of 4. This is an issue and here's my proposed solution. Like, be specific. And so that's one of the elements that I have in mind. And the other one that I have very behavioral is don't bury the lead. Put the bottom line up front. Tell me what you need. Let's get to the point. And then if we need to, we'll dig deeper. And the why behind that is if I trust and we have a relationship where I know that you know what you're talking about and we're in sync and things are going good, you can give me the bottom line up front and I can go, we're good to go, man. There's nothing more to talk about here. Let's go.
Done.
Done.
It's one of my principles. Give me the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't need to sugarcoat it. I'm a big boy. I've been doing this for a long time. Bring it to me. We'll solve it. I understand that running a company, things happen. So bring me the good, bad, and the ugly. If I get that principle from somebody, I can trust you, right? It's the ones who kind of, who are always hiding the ugly. And I'm like, all right, look, now I have to go pull it from you. And then I feel like I'm poking at you and I don't trust you, right? And it sounds that way in meetings. I'll be in a meeting with somebody, and when I'm poking, what are you doing? What about this? Like here, one, I don't want to be that guy, right? It's not the guy that I want to be, in an environment, right? So I really want the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you bring it, and then, like you said, we can get over it pretty quick, and know that, look, I've got smart people. You're going to solve whatever that is. Rarely do I need to get involved in it. You've got what it takes to go solve those. But all right, so that, I think that's a good one. So now you get to know you and your who you are as a fundamental. Now let's go to the next piece.
Next piece will be talking about what are my non-negotiables. What just does not fly with me, right? So something for me is excuses. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to understand reasons, and I want to understand what we're going to do about it. But I don't want to hear, well, this thing happened and it's their fault. Like, that doesn't help. Tell me what we're going to do. Let's talk about why it happened. That's it. So what are the non-negotiables of behavior that you just should know about in leading and working with me? That'll be the next one that I really want to dig into. And it takes about, an hour to write one of these. It doesn't take a ton of time because we all know this stuff. But here's the thing. They don't. And here's the best part of this, Anthony, is when we've had this document shared and we sync it together on it, when there's behavior that's incongruent, mine or theirs, all we have to do is pull the document out and say, hey, we need a refresh on our expectations. We've created clarity around our expectations. This behavior I observed is incongruent with that. Let's make sure we talk about it. I gave you the playbook. I gave you the decoder ring for me, and I have yours. Let's make sure we get in sync so we don't talk past each other. And so we don't let them guess. We don't let our team members guess about what's important to us. I'll give you a really specific example. This has how I want to be communicated with, how I communicate and how I want to be communicated with. I'm extremely direct and candid. So I will just have very fierce, frank conversations. And I put in there, I want you to know I will have fierce, frank conversations. They are not personal. If you ever feel that I am personally attacking or denigrating you, I want you to stop the conversation. I give you permission to say, I feel like right now this is personally a personal attack. I know you don't mean it that way, but that's how I'm receiving that information. And I'll tell people that, hey, I want you to do that because I'm going to cut to the chase. And so that just allows us to move further, faster together. I'll give you an example. So I had a COO, this is maybe 10 years ago. I had just gotten the Apple Watch, right? So I'm a kind of a badass. I'm thinking, this is cool. I've got the Apple Watch. The darn thing kept dinging. We had our one-on-one meeting. And this is a person who reported to me. One-on-ones with me happened every 2 weeks, and it was their time. I didn't control the agenda. It was kind of like you were talking about earlier. This is your time. I'm here to talk about whatever is going to best benefit you. It can be family, fishing. It doesn't matter. We're in this one-to-one, and my new little Apple Watch was dinging because I didn't have the do not disturb at that point, and I just kept looking at it. George, at about 10 minutes, maybe 15 into the conversation, stopped and said, hey, Dusty, I can clearly see that there is something going on that's more important than this time that we've set aside for me right now. If it's okay with you, I'd like to stop our session and reschedule it until you can be fully present.
Fair. That's
totally fair.
Okay, kudos to them, right?
Kudos to them.
Seriously. Yeah.
I gave them permission to do it.
Yeah, and that really creates, look, that's important to me. This time's important. When you do that in front of me, or have your phone on, or your other people walking in and out of my one-on-one with you, it impacts my ability to really be there. And then I don't trust. Then they lose that trust. I kudos to that person. That's a really well developed muscle in your team to be able to say that in a group.
Yeah, and it's grounded in the fact that we had already communicated that this is how I wanted to show up, and he had permission to call me out.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's a good one. Look, and it's fun when I watch groups, who have those practices, right, where you can be, ridiculously honest, or just getting really impeccable about honesty and integrity and to the conversation. it's kind of like, I call it rigorous honesty, like, or candor. When I can speak with candor in a room, then, that whole hierarchy of who's, that goes away, and I really get the best out of the people that are there. And I think that's one of my favorite part about, the evolution of it. At first I felt a little bit, at first as a leader, I felt a lot like some sort of militant sergeant. You go here, you go there, you go there. And look, it's exhausting, right? And as we evolve, we start to really realize that they're caring, they know what to do and how to do that. Now, I think great companies have to go through the other side of it, right? So that's the part you do working on us, right? The part I work on me, right? Now I have to do the other part, which is work on the organization, right? And the places where those SOPs have got to be executed on, because if teams don't deliver, it's not workable for the rest of the team, right? It's for the rest of the company. If a project, for us, if a project comes in from business development and it doesn't go through this exact process, oftentimes I relate it to flying an airplane. I've been taking flying lessons.
Oh, cool.
And every time I get in a plane, like no matter how many times I've been in a plane, I have a checklist. And we go right down this checklist. Here, not that I don't know what to do. It's not like, but if we don't, and I forget one thing, check the magnetos, and I get up in the air and they go out, I'm probably not going to have a good time hitting the ground fast. Right? So I think the same thing happens in our organizations where, we do hundreds of projects every single day. I mean, we're doing $3+ million worth of work a day out there. And, when you start to look at, we get sloppy.
Yeah, process is there for a reason, and it's there to make sure that we have durable, repeatable value creation for our customers and clients. The only way that we can create durable, repeatable value is to have a way that allows us to do it as efficiently as possible. And that's what process is for. That's the way we can control the outcomes, the outputs, whatever it is. And if we drift, then we get sloppy, then the customer should fire us because we're not creating the value that we told them we were going to. And so I just have this mindset of the way we protect value, the way we protect and create scale is to ensure that we have good processes. They're never, sacred processes. They're good processes that we make sure we follow every single time. Because I don't want to crash into the ground. And that's how we make sure that we make it easy for our teams. And when we do that, and we do that well, it works. We just have to say it so many times. We're tired of talking about it.
All right. So what are the 3 characteristics of an entrepreneur that as a coach, you're always trying to work on?
Number 1, create clarity. Create clarity, create clarity, create clarity.
Right. When you say clarity, let's talk about what do you mean by clarity? Clarity of vision, clarity of where we're going as a company, clarity of process, all the above?
Yeah, there's 5 things. And I think that these are the 5 most important things that an entrepreneur or a leader needs to ensure that their team can answer when they're not in the room. Number 1, why are we here? What's our purpose beyond making money? And I think that that's incredibly important when you want to connect people to their work, right? So if we want to have people who are missionaries and not mercenaries, who are ready, willing, and able to give discretionary effort to this organization or to our customer, we need to make sure they can connect the dots. So the first dot they have to connect is, why are we here? What's our purpose beyond making money? Number 2, where are we going? What's our vision? And believe it or not, people really do want to understand that, even, and maybe most especially at the front lines. When you have an organization where people are on the front line, they are often so disconnected from the purpose and from the vision and from all these things, but they have to show up and do a good job. And if you're not careful, they'll just devolve to the minimum viable standard. And what we want to do is we want to give them the ability to up level to discretionary effort to do the work well. So that's the second dot we need to connect for them. Number 3, what's our plan? How are we going to get there? So we understand our purpose and we have an articulated vision. What's our plan? What is it that we're actually going to do? That gives people confidence. That gives people the ability to make better decisions because they know where they fit in. And that's the 4th dot. How do I fit in? And all my work with organizations, this is the one where I find organizations fall so incredibly flat at connecting the dots between the work a person is doing and how it fits into the plan, the vision, or the purpose, or all 3. And then the last dot to connect is, what's in it for me? And it's that, every time I say that, people go, well, that's the money dot. No, it's not. Money can be part of it, but it's only part of it. What is it about opportunity? What is it about growth? What is it about learning, et cetera? So when leaders do this and create clarity for themselves and then cast that into their organization and connect those dots, what they're really doing is they're enabling the people who are closest to the customer problem or opportunity to make better decisions than they could when they're not in the room. And that's how you know it works. When you're not in the room, when these things are coming and being said and talked about and done.
Love it. All right, number two.
Number two is you have to be very, very, very comfortable repeating yourself. When you're tired of talking about it, it is only starting to sink in. And I say this to leaders all the time.
So just here, relentless. You're carrying the flag. You're clearing the process. You're carrying the vision. It's just an ongoing, continuous, relentless communication about it.
Yes, it is, because what's in your head and is so clear and you never need to repeat because you already know it, they don't hear it that way. They're not thinking about it 24/7 over and over and over again. You know, when I used to do town halls, and I would do these every quarter with every employee, so it would be like 20 meetings a quarter, and I wanted to do them in person. People knew that I was going to talk about three things every single time, every time they saw me. And I had somebody call me out on this maybe 15 years ago. He said, "Hey, Dusty, I love that every time you come and talk to us, you're going to talk about our purpose. You're going to talk about our vision. You're going to talk about our plan." He said, "The thing I appreciate the most is you connect me to it. You connect the dots, but it takes ongoing repetition and it's exhausting. But it's part of the job."
Relentless vision, a relentless process, relentless. I mean, look, it's the only way for it to get worked. Like the first time is just really, the first time is you working it out yourself, right? The second time is you getting it out of your mouth, right? I mean, like, I think for me as a leader, every time I say it, the more it crystallizes, the clearer it gets, the more, the more that behaviors are. A lot of times, that's where it gets formed, is in the communication of it, right? Like in creating the process, creating this, the vision. The more I go through that and articulate it, the more it crystallizes, and the less of the broken glass I have to walk through for people. They can see around the things that aren't important. Like the part you talked about in the Ironman. And look, what's important when you're on the backside of an Ironman that's not really important that you're thinking about. Look, let's focus on what's really important right now.
Yeah. And when you do it and it echoes, when you hear it being talked about out of other people's mouths as if you had just said it, that's when you know it's working. That's when you know that it's really, so I always tell folks, say it so often that it echoes, but it's an echo from someone else.
All right. Number three.
And this is one where I think it's, people struggle. We have to focus on outcomes, not how. And so I work with so many entrepreneurs and leaders and executives, and I've been through all these battles myself. What are the outcomes we are focused on achieving, not how does it need to be done? Because it's a slippery slope. When we get into prescribing the how, what people do is they focus on the work to be done, the processes, the rocks, the things. They don't focus on the results that we're trying to achieve. And then we look around and we go, wait a minute, why are we doing this again? We have to focus on the outcomes.
It's impossible to systematize perfection. It is impossible. I have been in this seat for a long time. I've worked with entrepreneurs. I do this podcast every day. There is no way you can, create a scope of work in any process that will get you. I do not care. Your brain can't handle it. The human being, it doesn't work. Maybe with AI, it will help somewhere. Maybe robots can get there somewhere. But with human beings and the way growing a business goes, outcome has to be it. Now, look, framework creates workability, so people know when I reach over, that's where the gun, sword, when I'm fighting the battle, gun, sword, knife, right? I got to be able to get to where the gun's at. But thinking that it's going to be 2.5 inches, just knowing that what I need for an outcome is the most important thing. Great. I love that one. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Those are the big three, man. If you execute against those three, you will be better.
All right. By the way, we're going to put a link down to your form down below, right? We're going to put that down there. And if people want to get you to come in and work with them, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I can see that I've got vision. Look, for those entrepreneurs that are out there, look, let me just give you an example for me. If I would have known earlier in my career the value of having great coaching, I would have done it earlier. I mean, look, today I know the game is the more coaching I've gotten, the better our organization is, the better I can lead, right? The better I can be in there. And look, the work at first is really awkward because, look, like the day Lola locked me in the office, like I was so mad at her. I was like, I'm paying you how much money a month? I'm paying how much to come in and lock me in my office? I like it seriously. I looked at her like, really? I was mad about it. But you couldn't see then what I see today. And today, back then, I would have paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars to have the company I have today because of those processes. So I think, for those of you that are wondering, and your ego's in the way, young entrepreneurs, all of you, I promise you the gift in having coaching, no matter how great you are, and you are great. Look, the fact that you're an entrepreneur and you're getting up every day and you're doing what it takes to take ideas out of the universe and put them in the world, it makes you great. Look, it's magical. What entrepreneurs do, they take an idea out of the universe and they bring it into existence, and that in itself is magical. And having a coach that can stand by your side and help you articulate and really clarify and hone your vision and your process in places in your blind spots that you can't see is another gift that I could just tell you right now. I highly encourage you finding a coach like Dusty to come in and work with you and your team and create that process. So Dusty, if people want to bring you on, and how do they get a hold of you? Where do they go? What's the steps to get from here to bringing Dusty on as a coach?
Yeah, the first step would be just connect. And so you can do so on LinkedIn or go to our website, arcusgroup.com. And I like to meet with people and create value. So I'll invite any of your audience to book a free clarity call and we'll talk about it. And I tell people straight up on a call, it's like, I may not be the right person to work with you. My team may not be, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend this next hour and we're going to create something that's of value for you. If you're willing to lean in and have a conversation, I'm willing to lean in and create value with no strings attached. But you got to be willing to lean in. And so, Anthony, one thing, as I mentioned, I'd love to give your audience, if they go to arcus.news, they can download that rules of engagement framework. And they can download a DISC assessment that goes with the same one I use with my CEO clients, because I find that if you look in the mirror and you actually understand who you are and codify these things, that's the most actionable value statement I can give, right? If you create your rules of engagement and start doing it today, you will be a better leader tomorrow. If you do the DISC assessment and really learn from it, you'll be better tomorrow. So I'm happy to do that. They can go to arcus.news and download that. No strings attached.
Right here. There, guys, hit where it says more right there. Hit more, and that link will be right there. Here, by the way, I'm going to show you mine. I'm going to go do that now. I'm going to have, hey, Jonathan, let's download that right now, and let's have me fill it out, and I'll put a copy of mine down there for you guys to see. I'll get vulnerable with you. Look, I'll go do this assessment. Look, it's a gift. Look, audience, you know what it is. Here, right now, when one of our people gets on here and gives us an opportunity, go do it right now. Like here, while we're talking, hit the link, download the forms, and let's go try this on.
Yeah, it's my gift, and I don't care if anyone ever reaches out to me or not. If you lead more impactfully and impact someone's life for better, for having created clarity and the ability to align more effectively with them, that's why I'm here. I have a BHAG to impact the lives of 100 million leaders. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, Anthony, but I'm going to do it one person at a time through conversations like this. And if one person makes that download and changes their behavior and creates clarity for someone they lead and serve, life is good, man. Life is really good.
I'm first right now. I'm first. Jonathan, you hold me accountable, right? Jonathan, you're my accountability partner. If I don't have this thing done by Friday, call me out on it, right? Call me out on it, all right?
Well, Anthony, I'll tell you what. You send me yours when you're done, and I'll give you my feedback on it.
Fantastic. David, or Dusty, I am so grateful for the time you spent together with us and the work that we did today. Great work. Great having you. I look forward to having you on the podcast again. Look, audience, we'll talk about mine. I love being vulnerable with you guys. You know how, putting it out there, where can I do more work? Where can I be more effective? Right. Having great coaches like Dusty on really does make a difference. So go to the Arcus. Here, we'll put all the link right there. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to write anything down. Right now, just hit more right? If on YouTube, just hit more, and down there will be the link to Dusty's website and all these forums that we're talking about. So thanks for being on today.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's such a pleasure, and I appreciate your willingness to be so vulnerable. Awesome.
Hey, audience, last week, 160,000 downloads. Look, you guys blow me away. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude and just the journey you guys followed, Jonathan and I and Joe and the whole team in the background. Look, it blows me away, the gift of having you guys on this journey with us. If you could, we noticed a lot of you weren't subscribers. It does make a difference. It's the one thing you can do for me that costs you nothing. Really, if you could just like and subscribe right now, it does make a difference for Jonathan and I. We get better guests because of it. Those numbers do make a difference. If you could do that for us right now, I'd be so grateful. And as always, thanks for listening.